fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debate, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes & Co.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch.
You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh my goodness me! And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
On the Mark Steyn Show, we cover the stories a lot of people are scared even to mention. The stuff that really matters with some of the world's biggest thinkers.
Now is his opportunity to kind of take the steering wheel of history.
Break away from the flop at 8 o'clock on GB News with the Mark Steyn Show.
Hello, I'm Esther McVeigh.
And I'm Philip Davis.
Whether you're watching or listening on TV, online or on radio, we handpick the latest stories, debates and expert opinions for your weekend. So whether that's politics, news or showbiz, we've got it covered.
Join us every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock on GB News.
Hello, I'm Alastair Stewart, and I'd invite you to join me at noon on Saturdays and Sundays for Alastair Stewart and Friends. I've been in this business for over 40 years. Now, here at GB News, I've never been happier. I get to choose the big stories that really interest me. We hear what you have to say, and you hear what I have to say. I really hope you can join me, noon on Saturdays and Sundays.
I'm Mark Dolan. Join me at 11 on GB News for Headliners, in which I'll be joined by two of the UK's top comedians discussing tomorrow's papers. If it's an important story, we'll cover it, but we'll have some fun along the way. Headliners, the late night paper review that won't send you to sleep like the others will. 7 nights a week at 11 p.m. on GB News.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
A very good evening on Mark Dolan tonight. My Mark Meets guest is the hilarious and always opinionated Channel 4 star Kim Woodburn from How Clean Is Your House? She'll talk fame, reality TV and how to get your home sparkling. In the big question, is Greta Thunberg right that it's time to end capitalism? What planet is she on? Well, we'll hear from both sides on that one. And in my big opinion, we have destroyed the economy. Ordinary Brits are paying the price. But there is a way through this. I'll see you after the headlines with Tatiana Sanchez.
Thank you very much, Mark. This is the latest from the GB newsroom. A series of planned rail strikes has been suspended, but the government is warning there would still be significant disruption over the next few days. RMT members were due to strike for 3 days from tomorrow, but the union says it's secured the promise of a pay offer and is now entering a phase of intensive talks. Rail operators have welcomed the action being called off, but say the change of plan has come too late to reinstate services tomorrow. Downing Street says the number of asylum seekers at the Manston Migrant Centre has dropped to 2,600. At one point, as many as 4,000 people were being held at the facility in Kent, when it's supposed to have a maximum of 1,600. Number 10 says the Home Office is looking at what more can be done about capacity at the processing centre. A new energy scheme that pays households to cut their electricity use during peak times has been revealed. The new demand flexibility service, approved by energy regulator Ofgem, will launch next month and run until March next year. The National Grid says a typical household could save up to £100, but will need a smart meter to take part. The scheme is also being put in place to avoid blackouts this winter. Strike action by hundreds of workers at Heathrow Airport could affect football fans heading to the World Cup in Qatar. The Unite Union says its members, including ground staff and baggage handlers, will walk out for 3 days from November the 18th in a dispute over pay. It said it expects Qatar Airways to be hit heavily by the strike action. The World Cup kicks off in just over 2 weeks' time. The new owner of Twitter has accused civil rights activist groups of pressuring advertisers to leave the site, causing a drop in revenue. Elon Musk claimed the groups are trying to destroy free speech in their concerns around his plans to loosen content moderation rules on the site. The social media giant has been making huge staff cuts as part of a major shake-up to save money. Offices have been closed and access to internal systems suspended as people were told about their employment. Pakistan's former Prime Minister says he'll resume his anti-government protest despite yesterday's assassination attempt. Imran Khan, who was shot in the leg, says 2 gunmen were behind the attack, which killed 1 person and injured 11 others. It happened as he was leading a march on the capital, Islamabad, to demand early elections and the resignation of the Prime Minister. In the UK, the Prime Minister has told a COP27 reception there'll be more human suffering if climate change continues to ravage the planet. King Charles hosted the event at Buckingham Palace, inviting more than 200 people, including business figures and environmentalists. The reception comes ahead of next week's summit in Egypt, which the King will miss, but Rishi Sunak is now attending after a U-turn. TV, online and DAB plus radio. This is GB News. Now it's back to Mark Dolan tonight.
My thanks to Tatiana Sanchez, who returns in an hour's time. Welcome to Mark Dolan Tonight. My Mark Meets guest is the hilarious and always opinionated Channel 4 star, Kim Woodburn. Of course, she appeared in How Clean Is Your House for 6 successful series. We'll talk fame, reality TV, and how to deal with those stubborn stains. Speaking of stubborn stains, in The Big Question, is Greta Thunberg right that it's time to end capitalism? We'll hear from both sides on that one. And in the news agenda, with ex-Jungle MP Lembit Opik and the UK's top celebrity agent, Professor Jonathan Shalit, OBE, with Matt Hancock heading to the Australian outback. Is it wrong for politicians to become celebrities? Plus, are parents responsible for the behaviour of their adult children? And after Elon Musk fires Twitter employees at 3 in the morning, what's the right way to sack people? Is there an etiquette? Let me know, mark@gbnews.uk. Tell me your sacking stories. Reacting to that and many more big stories tonight, my fantastic panel of journalist and broadcaster Stephanie Tecci, the writer and political commentator Benjamin Loughnane, and legendary journalist and author Nina Mishkov. Now, I do want to hear from you throughout the show, mark@gbnews.uk. And this programme has a golden rule. We don't do boring. Not on my watch. I just won't have it. So for the next 2 hours, big debates, big guests, and always big opinions. Let's start with this one. As the flame-haired pop superstar Mick Hucknall famously once sang, money's too tight to mention. And in terms of the British economy, the bank balance is now simply red. We are broke, brassic, on our uppers. The cupboard is bare, we haven't got a pot to piss in. The national debt is now over 100% the size of the economy and will be running a huge budget deficit for many years to come, in which more goes out than comes in. And the cost of interest payments on our debts before we pay back even a penny is now north of £80 billion a year. That's more than the defence budget. Inflation is running at over 10%, which is bad news for everyone because it simply reduces the value of money. And with the main lever to control it being raised interest rates, it means the cost of our mortgages, loans and credit cards go up as well. Hilariously, bitter Remainers will have you believe this is all down to our decision to leave the European Union, which doesn't explain raging inflation or recession on the continent. I'm not sure that Germany had Brexit too, did they? For the avoidance of doubt, this is not about Brexit or even the Ukraine war, which has, I'll grant you, spiked energy prices. The UK economy is utterly broken as a result of an arrogant, misguided and diabolical overreaction to a flu-type virus. The predominant theme of the next 10 years will be managed economic pain, thanks to our insane adoption of Chinese-style lockdowns over the last 2.5 years, which half-witted idiots calling themselves economic experts from this university and that told me was cost-neutral. The experts, eh? Next time, I will listen to unqualified idiots. They'll probably make more sense and we'd be in a better position. In the end, how did we think that shutting down the economy for over 2 years, closing once viable businesses and paying healthy people to stay at home wasn't going to end badly? But you know me, I'm a positive person and my glass is always half full. We're in for a rough ride in the next few years, but we'll get through this as we've been through so much worse as a nation, particularly 2 devastating world wars in the last century. But this also gives us an opportunity to reboot and to start again, particularly in relation to public spending and the size of the state. The truth is that for decades now, we have lived beyond our means. Government after government have resisted balancing the books and achieving a level of public expenditure that actually equates to our income, like you and I have got to do at home and businesses have to do in the office. In other words, balance the books. For decades, we've been living on the never, never. Well, never again. For too long, we've been living high on the hog, with the printing of empty billions and the illusion of growth from cheap borrowing. But the game's up and the party is over. Austerity isn't even a choice now. Living beyond our means is now being forced upon us, and that's possibly no bad thing. The government are looking at every tax rise you can think of, and every cost-cutting measure to boot. HS2, the Sizewell nuclear power plant, the arts budget, the police, schools, you name it. It's all subject to austerity, the sequel. This time we mean it. It didn't have to be this way, but we thought we could stop a virus. Sorry. The international bond markets, upon whose largesse we relied for too long, have a gun to our head right now. Even a future Labour government in the pocket of the unions will not be able to spend with abandon, as now it's Rolex-wearing, bonus-chasing financiers who run Britain, not the government. Only with sustained economic growth are we back in charge. So it's not ideal, it is self-inflicted, but we are where we are. Which is why Rishi Sunak must get real and be honest with the British people. That the way this country has spent money over the years has been unsustainable. And now, with the cupboard bare, expectations about just how much the state can do in our lives must be drastically reduced. Welfare, for example, created in the early 20th century to protect those unexpectedly unable to work, has become a lifestyle choice. Don't take my word for it. Why are there currently over 1 million job vacancies in this country? The NHS used to be there to help you if you suffered an unexpected illness or if you were unlucky enough to go under a bus. The NHS was there to put you back together again like Humpty Dumpty. But the NHS has expanded its remit and is now the National Sickness Service, with countless billions going into the management of entirely preventable conditions like obesity and type 2 diabetes, which are almost exclusively lifestyle-related. Now, why is this a problem? Well, because the current cost of the NHS is £13,000 per household. And they want more money. Do they really want more money? How can they possibly justify seeking more funds? Now, I'm not saying this is a good thing, but I believe in the principle of the NHS. But you could easily give households half of that 13 grand budget and they could cover themselves with private medical insurance. That's how inflated the state provision of so-called public health has become. So in the end, the push for growth and a smaller state is no longer ideological, it's existential. We need to grow our economy and spend less cash. The days of the state wiping your arse are no more, because the state is on its arse. For years, we've been living in a fool's paradise, and the current economic shock has transported us back to reality with a bump. This is an unprecedented economic crisis, but it's an opportunity too. It's time for Britain to wake up and smell the coffee. We must aim over time for a low-tax, small state, big economy and a handsome national income. That's how you look after everyone in our society, especially the poorest. It helps no one to tax and spend your way to oblivion, or to borrow to the high heavens. No one is too big to go down, and we don't want to be another Greece. I don't think that's overstating it. Such is the gravity of the situation. So our new Prime Minister, who I'm certain is up to the job, needs to make some tough decisions. And the economy needs some tough love. And if you don't like the sound of that, tough luck. What's your view? Mark at gbnews.uk. In my view, it's time for Britain to wake up and smell the coffee. It's time to shrink the state and grow our economic output. Let's get the views now of my brilliant panel tonight. Stephanie Tecci, the writer and political commentator, Benjamin Loughnane, who is an author and broadcaster, and the legendary journalist and presenter Nina Mishkov. Let me start with you, Stephanie. What's your view about the current economic situation? I think it's time that Britain drastically reduced the size of the state.
I think it's now time for us to be real with what's going on in our economy. I think for decades now, we've kind of been shoving this problem underneath the rug, and now it's staring us all right bang in the face. And it's time that each family, each individual plan for themselves, because I think as well, too long we've been depending on the state to look after us and to help us with our bills, health and all that kind of stuff. And over the past 2 years, we've realised if we do that, we're going to be left out in the cold. So I think it's time for all of us as individuals just to wake up, smell the brutal coffee of what's happening in our economy at the moment. But I am optimistic that we will get through this. As Brits, we are quite resilient, and that even depends to our money as well.
Obviously, we need the essentials, but do you think we just need to redraw our relationship with the state as a population, Stephanie? Do you think we need to manage expectations about what the government can do? I feel that we've got the legacy of lockdowns in which the state paid people to stay at home, and we need to snap out of that mentality.
I totally agree with that, Mark. I feel like we've been too comfortable and say, like, it's become too much of a nanny state. And, you know, what I love about the younger generation is they're really making things happen for themselves, setting up their own businesses, you know, carving out their own path. And that's what we need. We need more independent thinkers, and that comes to money as well. There's the days of depending on the state to help us is not going to help us at all. In this generation and in this day and age, we need to make it for ourselves.
Yes, the bottom line, Benjamin Loughnane, is that Britain is broke. Austerity, it's not even a debate now, is it?
Well, it's not so much that we spend too much money out of public funds, it's that we seem to spend it on all the wrong things. So we're giving millions, if not billions, every year in foreign aid, for example. We've got the Channel crisis at the moment going on, and that's costing us millions every day just to take care of that. There are a number of areas where we seem to be wasting the money that we do have, the public funds that we do have, seem to be going on things that we shouldn't necessarily have to be spending them on. And then that, you know, sucks money away from the things like frontline services, the NHS, from helping the people who are most in need. So, yes, it's, you know, I think people understand we need to make cutbacks in order to get through, but I don't think it goes down too well when they see where money is actually being spent. Why should we have to make the sacrifices while money continues to be spent on things like giving money to India, who have a space programme?
Yes, but, Benjamin Loughnane, Rishi Sunak needs to come home from work every night and say to the missus, honey, I shrunk the state.
Yeah, hopefully that'd be excellent. And hopefully he doesn't go the same way as Liz Truss, where he tries to do it too quickly and people jump on him and drive him into oblivion. You know, it needs to be a slow, gradual process tending towards a Britain which is fit for the modern age and fit for the future.
Nina Mishkov, this problem predates the pandemic. In fact, we've had this issue for decades. Britain spends more than it brings in.
Well, we've never seemed to be able to balance the books, and quite frankly, the reason we're at this state now is we've had 12 years of Tory mismanagement, and actually the Ukraine war, which is our war that's being fought for us by the Ukrainians, has drained a lot. But we, you know, I understand all that you're saying, but we have to have balance. We have to have humanity. We have to have some kind of philanthropic idea of what the government is for. The government is there to look after its citizens. I'm not saying it should be a nanny state, but we have to. They are there to make our lives better, to give us the best lives we can possibly have. And there's been so much kind of mismanagement and so much money wasted. And you know, waste, for instance, you know, even on defence spending, you know, the Ajax tank, and that's millions and millions and millions and millions of pounds, doesn't work. So it's not just we're wasting money on people who, the implication is, are sitting at home, you know, stuffing donuts in their faces and watching soaps. It's not just the money going on people like that. You know, that's the wrong attitude. We have to be very, very careful where we push this, you know, because otherwise, you know, the people who most need the help are going to fall absolutely through the slats. So it has to be a balance. But we, you know, this business of, you know, this far too big a state, I don't agree with that.
Well, I agree with you about not letting some people fall between the cracks, and that was the essential point of the NHS and of the welfare state, those who need it. But the issue you've got is 1 million job vacancies, whilst we're still paying people to stay at home and not work, which is definitely an issue. And what about £13,000 per household for the NHS? It's simply unsustainable.
Well, the thing is that the NHS needs somehow to be tightened up. It needs to be run better. People need to take a grip of it. I don't understand why we've always had this problem that nobody seems to be able to say, right, we're far too top heavy with management. Let's cut that. You know, if you actually encounter the National Health Service, you know, the people that you come across, the nurses, the doctors, the consultants, are on the whole fantastic. They're working so hard, they're doing a wonderful job, and yet somehow there's a kind of schism. And we need to look very carefully at that. But having said that, we don't seem to be able to run anything. Look at the Foreign Office, not fit for purpose. So at least the NHS is still functioning, which the Foreign Office doesn't seem to be doing at all.
Should our pint-sized Prime Minister shrink the state? Let me know your views. mark@gbnews.uk. In the news agenda with my brilliant panel, can you be a politician and a celebrity? Also, are parents responsible for the behaviour of their adult children? And after Elon Musk fires Twitter employees at 3 in the morning, what's the best way to sack people? Is there an etiquette? Have you been fired? Tell me your sacking stories. My Mark Meets guest is the hilarious and always opinionated Channel 4 star, Kim Woodburn. But next, in the big question, is Greta Thunberg right that we should scrap capitalism? Get the kettle on whilst you're still allowed, and I'll see you in 3.
Hello there, it's Eamon Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and TuneIn apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
Hello, I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m, where I'll be joined by 2 of the country's top comedians as we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight. If it's a big story, we'll be covering it, I guarantee, but we'll also have some fun along the way. That's GB News Headliners at 11 p.m. We won't put you to sleep, unlike some of the other paper review shows out there. So join us, 11 p.m, 7 nights a week.
I'm Mark White. As GB News Home and Security Editor, I cover those key issues that are so important to you. Are authorities, are communities doing all they can to combat violent crime? With the public services under unbearable strain, why are we still failing to control our borders? Defence, the first priority of any government, has been continually hollowed out. Can we trust our politicians to protect the armed forces? Join me, Mark White, on GB News.
Join me, Nana Akua, on Friday, Saturday and Sunday afternoons on GB News. Expect fiery debate and passionate discussion as me and my panel tackle some of the biggest topics hitting the headlines. It's a place for everyone's opinion. No one gets cancelled, but no one gets an easy ride.
Oh, she's on it today.
Be ready for conversations that are fierce, frank, and of course, fun. Every Friday, Saturday and Sunday afternoon from 4 p.m. on GB News.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
The national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
Every Saturday at 2 o'clock, join me, Darren Grimes, for Real Britain. I'm not afraid to give you a platform and say it how it is.
Come on, make the case. Something like this is very, very important to people.
And we're always up for a laugh on this show.
God, honestly, you'd think there were no problems in the world.
Real Britain, every Saturday on GB News.
On the Mark Steyn Show, we cover the stories a lot of people are scared even to mention. The stuff that really matters with some of the world's biggest thinkers.
Now is his opportunity to kind of take the steering wheel of history.
Break away from the flock at 8 o'clock on GB News with the Mark Steyn Show.
We are GB News.
And we'd like to say thank you
To each and every one of you
for helping our great nation
Find its voice.
We're absolutely everywhere.
across England, Scotland,
Wales and Northern Ireland.
On TV,
On radio,
And online.
We're proud to be
The People's Channel.
Britain's
News channel.
Big news! My Saturday night show just got bigger. More guests, more stories, and more big opinions.
You can't govern a country if you can't speak.
That's Mark Dolan's Saturday Night In, this Saturday from 8, only on GB News. Who needs the pub? Bring a bottle and I'll see you there. Yes, folks, you can't have too much of a big thing. Yes, indeed, my show is going to be 3 hours every Saturday night. That's right, 8 till 11. Starting tomorrow night, it's Mark Dolan's Big Night In. We're going to have a brilliant time, great guests, great debates, and I want you to be involved too. The first hour of the programme is dedicated to your video calls. That's right, we start at 8 with the People's Hour. So if you want to be a star on this show, if you want to be involved, drop me a line right now, mark@gbnews.uk, and be part of the People's Hour, which premieres tomorrow night at 8. That's right, 3 hours of Dolan, just what you need. Looking forward to that, but in the meantime, let's get back to your responses to my big opinion monologue. I believe the size of the state must be shrunk drastically in order for Britain to be on a sustainable economic path. But what's your view? Mark@gbnews.uk. Bill says, Mark, I loved your big opinion monologue and agree with all of your points. That said, you failed to highlight our burgeoning underclass. Millions of people who choose not to work and live on benefits. We cannot cull this army of spongers, but we can stop them breeding. Cut benefits, reward work, punish freeloaders. Also, how about this from Gautam, who says, excellent monologue, very timely and relevant issue. This is the only way forward. Stephanie and Benjamin, your brilliant panellists, made very good points. Nobody can make anybody rich and prosperous except themselves, says Gautam. Paul on the NHS says, if you overcrowd the nation, the capacity of the NHS simply cannot keep up with the ludicrous demand. David says, Mark, great show. 25% of our spending is on welfare services. The models need reviewing and changing instead of relying on almost a century-old model, which is increasingly used to redistribute wealth rather than help people who can't help themselves. And how about this finally from Stephen for now? Very poetic from Stephen. Hi, Mark. The trouble with the UK is the government keeps throwing fish to the poor instead of teaching them to fish. The more they give, the more the people want. Well, keep those opinions coming. Mark at gbnews.uk. It's time for this. Yes, it's time for the big question in which we tackle a major news story of the day. Tonight, at her book launch this week, vegan teenager and eco-campaigner Greta Thunberg seemed to be in an even worse mood than usual, declaring the need to end capitalism. She said the Western world is in need of a system-wide transformation because capitalism is currently defined by colonialism, imperialism, oppression and genocide by the so-called global north to accumulate wealth that still shapes our current world order. At one point, she called capitalism racist. Interesting. But has she got a point about the way we do business in the West? With inequality growing and young people in this country unable to get on the housing ladder or escape low-paid work, is capitalism now failing the people? Are the days of the market economy numbered? To debate this, I'm delighted to welcome top financial commentator and wealth advisor Jonathan Davies, who is also a writer for the free Booms and Busts newsletter. And alongside him, a very warm welcome to Paddy Shannon, co-editor of the left-wing Bible, The Socialist Standard, the official magazine of the Socialist Party of Great Britain. Let's start with you, if I can, Paddy. Welcome to the programme. Do you think capitalism has essentially, failed the people? Does it need a rethink?
I think it's always failed the people. It failed the people right from the start. It's always been based on the private ownership of production. What it's done well is it's socialized production, and that's given civilization a rocket boost. So let's be quite clear. We're not saying that capitalism was some kind of terrible mistake. It was a stage that advanced human civilization massively. But what happened was while it socialized production, it kept the ownership of that production in private hands. And so what you've seen is a sort of inevitable development of a super rich elite, which is getting smaller and smaller and richer, and the sort of consequent impoverishment of practically everybody else in the world and also of the environment itself. So, the argument needs to be now, what do we put in the place of capitalism? How do we move on beyond the buying and selling system to a system of society that is more equitable and, gives most of the people in the world, or all of the people in the world really, a sort of reasonable standard of living instead of, as I say, giving all the wealth to the super rich and with the consequent impoverishment and sort of virtual economic enslavement of virtually everybody else in the world. So, that would be my starting position.
Well, Paddy, you're right about the rich getting richer, but the poor have got poorer too. And we've seen an unprecedented lifting of living standards in the last few decades. And what about the billions of people around the world who have been lifted out of poverty thanks to capitalism?
Yes, they have, and that's true. Most of those people are in in Asia and Southeast Asia, China, places like that. Absolutely true. Of course, there are vast areas of the world where that's not happened. Of course, I mean, just look at the African continent, large areas of India. So there's still a lot of poverty around the world, and the sort of the success that sort of Chinese capitalism has had over the last 30 years, and I use the word capitalism quite deliberately because it's not a communist society. I would argue it's never been a communist society, despite what it claims. But their success has come at a price. It's come at a price for the population of China. It's come at a price for the environment. So in fact, China is quite indicative of how capitalism sort of makes it it only knows how to pursue profit. It's driven by the private pursuit of profit, which is creating, and I think this is where Greta Thunberg is making, this is the point she's making is it's creating a sort of global tragedy of the commons. And capitalism isn't able to operate any other way because the drive for profit is built into it. And if capitalist companies don't try and grow, they will die. They know that, so they have to do it. Now, these are private private companies are acting not in concert with other companies. They're acting privately, often secretively. So no one can really see what's going on. Economists can't really guess what's going on. They really, economics is really about sort of enlightened guesswork. And what people like me argue is that because capitalism has done such an amazing job of developing technology to the point we're at now, let's make no bones about it. It has done an amazing job of that, but it's now created a situation where we could actually make everything free, and by doing that, we would be able to make people free, all of us. So we wouldn't be economic slaves, the equivalent of economic slaves, or wage slaves, if you like. We wouldn't have to, work for bosses and get up and go and do jobs we hate. We'd be able to choose sort of fulfilling lives. We'd be able to do what we want to do. But all of this would have to involve the abolition of the things that make the market economy work. So we're talking about markets, we're talking about private ownership of useful wealth. I don't mean, private ownership of, somebody else's trousers or something silly, but, useful wealth, important wealth. And basically the abolition of money as well, because money is part of, if you didn't have money in capitalism, you'd have to have some silly barter system. So we're talking about a change, lock, stock and barrel, from capitalism onto what we think of as an upgrade, a better version of society that actually fits, supplies the needs of the people in it, rather than the sort of desires of a very tiny elite. So
Jonathan Davis. Let's make everything free and we'll all be free. Scrap capitalism and get rid of money altogether, says Paddy Shannon.
Well, as the lady said, he would say that, wouldn't he? What he also said was, and I was absolutely delighted to hear it, that capitalism was incredibly successful at bringing the majority of folk out of poverty. The heyday of capitalism in Britain and Europe was, of course, the second half of the 19th century. Britain, of course, created the modern industrial economy. Before that, for thousands of years, we had a feudal system. You had the king, the court. These guys were incredibly wealthy. And then you had everyone else. And they were in poverty. They died by the age of 35. They were always ill. They never had enough to eat, and so on. And then over 100 or 200 years, practically everyone in Great Britain in those days got wealthier. We got the middle class, which we'd never had before. So you know where I'm going with this. Then we go forward to the second half of the 20th century, when unfortunately they dismantled capitalism. The idea that we have capitalism is a nonsense. Paddy, I'm sorry, sir, what you're confusing is capitalism with corporatism. Corporatism is where the state and the large corporate, Mussolini called it fascismo, fascism, get together and they decide, the politicians and the business elite, or more particularly the financial elite, the banking elite, they decide what's going to happen and they take all the spoils. If we had capitalism, I tell you, no one would have been bailed out as in 2008, when in fact the top 1% was bailed out. And it happened again in 2020. In the United States, they printed $10 trillion. The top 1% got 40% of that. This is not capitalism. Mark, for capitalism, we need failed businesses to go bust. And therefore, you have from the ashes, you have the new businesses coming in, taking over with far lower costs of capital, with the opportunity to grow and develop from a far lower cost base. That is the capitalism that we had for 200 years. That is why we don't have capitalism. If only we had it. The sheer idea that we should end it is in itself a nonsense.
OK, and would you want to respond to that, if you'd like to come back on the point made by Jonathan Davis, Paddy Shannon, and all the points he's just made?
Well, I'll just make a couple of points, really. I mean, in the first case, I think we're sort of diverging a little bit on definitions here. What I would describe capitalism as, the way I would describe capitalism is in really basic terms as a system of society based on the production of commodities for sale on a market. Now, you can see from that really basic sort of definition that that would describe all of the so-called communist countries, Soviet countries, China, North Korea even. You know, they've all got money. They all produce commodities for sale on a market. So they're all capitalists, according to my definition. And I think what you're describing is a sort of flavour of capitalism. And it seems to me that you know, the kind of sort of small capitalism that you're describing from sort of 200 years ago, I mean, if I can give a sort of analogy to this, it's a little bit like, you know, when a bunch of people play Monopoly and it starts off and everybody's got a bit of money, you know, and everybody does a bit of buying and selling and it's all really good fun. And then right towards the end of the game, what happens is you've got practically everybody's been kicked out of the game and you've got one person or two people with loads and loads of money. Okay. And it's no fun for anyone anymore. So what I'm just saying is that capitalism, small capitalism 200 years ago was inevitably going to turn into this. And if you try to wind the clock back 100 years, all that you would do is put off the inevitable and it would again turn into what it is today.
Paddy, I hear what you're saying, but if we were to get rid of capitalism, to get rid of money, who's going to pay the wages of nurses and bankroll the NHS, pay for schools and, of course, policing, defence, you name it? And can you name a successful socialist economy at any point in history?
Well, I think as I've just explained, there has never been a socialist country in history because there's never been a socialist country in the last 300 years that didn't produce commodities for sale on a market with a view to realising a profit. There's never been a country that didn't do that. And what we're suggesting is
Chairman Mao's China not socialist enough for you?
No. It wasn't. Well, no, because, I mean, did they abolish money? No, they didn't. Did they abolish commodity production? No, they didn't.
It was communism.
So, you know, well, they said it was communism. I mean, if somebody offers you a bottle of black liquid and it says milk on the label, are you going to believe the label? People tell lies, you know, get over it. It's the truth.
And how do we pay for the NHS? How do we pay welfare? Okay. How do we pay for schools and police if we don't have capitalism?
Well, for example, right now, even though we've got, you know, capitalism and people work for money and they have to work for money, we've still got a volunteer workforce globally that's approximately the size of India. That's people who volunteer. That's people who do work for no money right now, even in capitalism. And what we're saying is, instead of having a buying and selling system which is divisive, sets everybody against everybody, sets country against country, and incidentally, this is why Greta Thunberg can't get any agreement over climate change, because the countries are all in competition with each other. Instead of all that, we're saying we've got the technology, we've got the know-how now to move forward beyond capitalism to a society where we can actually share everything without money. So people can do socially useful things in the way that they want to do them. People who want to be nurses can go into being nurses. People who want to be airline pilots can train to do that. People who want to sort of be computer programmers or artists can choose to do that. We don't have to be We don't have to be forced into work that we probably don't like out of terror of poverty. And let's be clear. Terror of poverty is what drives capitalism, and it drives people to work in capitalism. It's not envy. It's not desire to be rich. It's just fear of poverty.
Okay.
That's what drives everybody.
There is, though.
So we're trying to move.
Yeah,
we're trying to move beyond that.
There is
to a shared
discontent, particularly among
society.
young people, in relation to the market economy. I mentioned in the intro that young people can't get on the housing ladder, they can't get out of low-paid jobs. It's not working for millions of people, this capitalist system, isn't it?
No, and you've got, I mean, the fact is that in places like London, there are more empty houses.
Can I put that point to Jonathan, because the clock's against us? Apologies, Paddy. Jonathan, capitalism isn't working for millions of people.
Well, again, we don't have capitalism. If we did, they wouldn't have bailed everyone out in 2008. House prices would be a half of where they are now. Rents would be a half of where they are now. Incomes would be such that we could afford many more things. The politicians, the academics, the Bank of England, they have brainwashed everyone into believing that we must have inflation. When the reality is, in the 19th century, we had deflation for most of it. By the end of the 19th century, we were incredibly prosperous. The population had never had it so good. So, the fact that young people are having it incredibly difficult, and I'm not suggesting they're not, it's not because of capitalism. If we had capitalism, things would be so much cheaper.
There you go.
But we don't have capitalism.
Jonathan Davis says we need more capitalism, and Paddy would like to scrap all of it. My thanks to Paddy Shannon, who's the co-editor of the left-wing Bible, The Socialist Standard, which is the official magazine of the Socialist Party of Great Britain. Thanks for your time, Paddy. Do come and see us again soon.
You.
And the financial commentator and wealth advisor, Jonathan Davis, who's also a writer for the free Booms and Busts newsletter. Go to the Booms and Busts website, sign up for the newsletter. It's a cracking read. Brilliant stuff. What's your view? Mark at gbnews.uk. I'll give you the results of our text poll on that next. But coming up, my Mark Meets guest is the hilarious and always opinionated Channel 4 star, Kim Woodburn. Plus, we've got the papers at 10:30 with full panel reaction. But next, can you be a politician and a celebrity? We'll speak to a politician and a celebrity manager. See you shortly.
We are GB News, and we'd like to say thank you to each and every one of you for bringing us your conversations, for helping our great nation find its voice. We are here for you on radio, television, and online, across England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland.
It's not the BBC, you actually get your facts right.
We are proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
My name's Tom Harwood, and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today. I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked. Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
On Mark Dolan tonight, we have a simple plan, which is to inform, stimulate and entertain in equal measure. It's all about getting your opinions on the national television airwaves. I love my viewer emails, mark@gbnews.uk. So do join me every Friday, Saturday and Sunday for big guests, big opinions and a big presenter. 6'5", don't you know? See you then on GB News.
Join me, Arlene Foster, for the Briefing on GB News. Every Friday at 3 p.m, I'll give you all the latest political news and analysis, and we'll have robust live debate. To make sure that you're caught up on all of the biggest issues of the day, we'll bring on experts in their field. I'll ask the questions that you'd like to ask. We're not afraid to tackle discussions from all perspectives, including yours. Don't forget, the Briefing with me, Arlene Foster, every Friday at 3 p.m. on GB News.
We are GB News, right across the nation. You can get us on television, on radio, on digital. We're absolutely everywhere.
Amazing! You see, amazing!
You remind me of me in the European Parliament. But here's the most important bit. We are not part of the mainstream establishment. We think and speak just like you do. We are the People's Channel.
Magnificent. That's really, really thoughtful.
Come and join us on GB News, the People's News Channel.
Now, a quick reminder that we start a brand new show tomorrow night. It's Mark Dolan's Saturday Night In from 8 till 11. Who needs the pub? Bring a bottle and I'll see you there. And if you want to take part in the People's Hour, that's the first hour of the programme from 8 till 9, it's the People's Hour, and you want to do a video call with me, then drop me an email right now, mark@gbnews.uk. It's the People's Channel, so we've given you your own show. Lots of emails coming in. Mark says, Mark, globalism is killing off capitalism. It's being squeezed by globalists and the neo-Marxist left-wing socialist dream. Jackie says, hi, Mark. Is Paddy Shannon, your socialist guest, bonkers? If anyone can be whatever they choose to be, who's going to choose to be a cleaner? Socialism doesn't take the selfish human nature into account, says Catherine. Richard says capitalism is not perfect, but it's the best of any alternative system. Calling it racist is straight out of the mainstream media playbook to scare and intimidate people by association and exposes a tired agenda. Richard says, hi, Mark, you say you're radical, but you're not radical enough. You seem to think that there is merit in the NHS. It is nonsense. A radical government that desires to shrink the state must start with the welfare state, which is not designed to help the poor and those in need, but to benefit the middle classes. Last but not least, at this stage, Andrew says, hi, Mark, love the show. Corporatism is a form of socialism, not capitalism. Andrew, thanks for that. I'll get to more of your emails shortly. But it's time now to discuss the first story in our news agenda for tonight. And following the news that Matt Hancock, former Secretary of State for Health and Social Care, will be appearing in The Jungle this year, we're reacting to that story. It's not the first time that a politician has gone from politics to celebrity status. This news has got us wondering, can a politician also be a celebrity? And if so, are they trying to have the best of both worlds? To debate this, I'm delighted to welcome Lembit Opik, former Liberal Democrat MP and, of course, star of The Jungle, and talent agent, in fact, one of the top agents in the country, CEO of the Intertalent Group, Jonathan Shalit. Well, look, Lembit, let me start with you. Can a politician be a celebrity?
Yes, but not on purpose. That's the point here. If you decide to be a celebrity and a politician, people hate it. It's almost superficial. It's almost dishonest. But some people can do both. Give you 3 examples, leaving aside, of course, myself. We've got Anne Widdecombe. We've got Boris Johnson, who quite clearly was a kind of celebrity. And then Michael Portillo, who did actually abandon politics, but he did become a celebrity and he made that smooth transition. So it can be done. But the big warning here, I don't know what Jonathan thinks, is if you actively try to do both, you crash and burn, because the public don't like that.
Jonathan Shalit, love you to have you on the programme. What has motivated Matt Hancock to do this programme? I can think of 400,000 reasons.
I suspect the reasons are quite simple.
he needs to make a ton of money. He's divorced from a lady. He's got children. He doesn't get much money as a backbench MP, yet his outgoings will be significant, if not more. So he needs a lot of money. Also, his career's going nowhere in the Conservative Party. Rishi Sunak quite clearly isn't going to give him a big job. So his career as an MP, to all intents and purposes, is coming to an end. I'm a Celebrity provides an opportunity to go on a new journey.
Do you buy that figure of £400,000 that he might be receiving this year to go in the jungle?
My personal guess from a lot of experience, and I've asked the question also because I negotiate talent to go on all these shows. My guess is he's probably getting around 250. I don't know, but that's my guess. But the papers never give the correct fees for anybody, as Lembit will know. The papers always get it wrong as to what people earn.
Assuming that Matt Hancock has given up his political career, you've rightly said, Jonathan Shalit, that it's clearly going nowhere. How much money can Matt Hancock make in the years to come as a celebrity former politician?
Well, I think the thing about Matt Hancock is, and I've met him a few times, he's a really nice guy, and I think everyone who gets to meet him likes him. And the way Michael Portillo is interesting, mentioning Michael Portillo, is when he actually started becoming a celebrity at the end of his politician journey, he was the most reviled man in Britain, and people relished the fact he lost his seat. And he turned that in his head and has now become a very popular, amiable guy. And I suspect Matt Hancock will do that. I suspect he'll be liked a lot in the jungle, and I suspect he'll go on to have a big media career. What I am surprised about, and I say this to you, Mark, if you didn't turn up to work tonight and next week, you probably get fired. Yet Matt Hancock's an MP and he can go AWOL from his constituents for 4 weeks, not do his job and keep his job, which I find extraordinary, that you can become an MP and not have to sign an agreement to service your constituents.
Completely. Jonathan, last but not least, before we go back to Lembit, just projecting over the next 5 years, what is the sort of figure that Matt Hancock could accrue from doing chat shows, speeches, a book, a newspaper column? What is his earning potential in the next 5 years?
I would say on average £1 million a year. I mean, if he does well, I'm a Celebrity, he could get £1 million, £1.5 million the next year, but equally that could drop down to 750. But someone like Matt could make, if you combine all the avenues you mentioned, he could probably make about £1 million a year. Quite often on weekends, for example, he could probably do 3 or 4 appearances for 10, 15,000 each minimum, if not up to 60, 70, plus a few endorsements, plus television shows, plus writing. He's going to have a lucrative career if he goes down the celebrity route, but it will be at the expense of having to resign his seat.
Lembit, you are a brilliant broadcaster, a star here on GB News and lots of other media platforms as well. You're in demand on the speaking circuit, but you were kind of a celebrity MP as well, weren't you?
Not on purpose. First of all, I find Jonathan's information about the figures heartbreaking. I should have fired my agent whenever I was in the jungle. Jonathan, let's speak after the show. Turning to the question that you're asking there, I never intended to be a celebrity. I suppose being on the jungle, by definition, means that you are one. And that's what I mean. If I'd actually tried to engineer it, then probably I would have had to do what Jonathan's saying. I'd have had to, on purpose, resign my seat. Now, I did lose in 2010, not on purpose, but I did lose. And that might mean that the public think you can be one or the other, but you can't be both. Anne Whittaker, I saw her this week, and she actively chose a new career, but she resigned at the time. And then she moved on, didn't really stand. Ed Balls lost his seat, and then he chose a celebrity career much more purposefully than I have done that. So my answer to you, Mark, is I don't think you can be both in the public's eye. You might end up being both, but then the public will decide which one they want you to be.
OK, Lembit, brilliant to see you again. Former Lib Dem MP and broadcaster Lembit Opik, and one of the most powerful agents in the country, a talent agent and CEO of Intertalent Group, Jonathan Shalit. In the next hour, why is society so tough on men? And live on the programme, Kim Woodburn from How Clean Is Your House? See you shortly.
We are GB News.
And we'd like to say thank you
To each and every one of you.
for helping our great nation
Find its voice.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Across England,
Scotland,
Wales and Northern Ireland.
On TV,
On radio,
And online.
we're proud to be
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debate, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch.
You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh my goodness me! And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilized conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
On the Mark Steyn Show, we cover the stories a lot of people are scared even to mention. The stuff that really matters with some of the world's biggest thinkers.
Now is his opportunity to kind of take the steering wheel of history.
Break away from the flop at 8 o'clock on GB News with the Mark Steyn Show.
Hello, I'm Esther McVeigh.
And I'm Philip Davis.
Whether you're watching or listening on TV, online or on radio, we handpick the latest stories, debates and expert opinions for your weekend. So whether that's politics, news or showbiz, we've got it covered.
Join us every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock on GB News.
Hello, I'm Alastair Stewart, and I'd invite you to join me at noon on Saturdays and Sundays for Alastair Stewart and Friends. I've been in this business for over 40 years. Now, here at GB News, I've never been happier. I get to choose the big stories that really interest me. We hear what you have to say, and you hear what I have to say. I really hope you can join me, noon on Saturdays and Sundays.
I'm Mark Dolan. Join me at 11 on GB News for Headliners, in which I'll be joined by two of the UK's top comedians discussing tomorrow's papers. If it's an important story, we'll cover it, but we'll have some fun along the way. Headliners, the late night paper review that won't send you to sleep like the others will. 7 nights a week at 11 p.m. on GB News.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
It's exactly 10 o'clock and this is Mark Dolan Tonight. My Mark Meets guest tonight is the hilarious and always opinionated Channel 4 star Kim Woodburn from How Clean Is Your House? She'll talk fame, reality TV and how to spruce up your homestead on a budget. In the news agenda with my panel, are parents responsible for the behaviour of their adult children? And after Elon Musk fires Twitter employees at 3 in the morning, what's the best way to sack people? Plus tomorrow's papers live and uninterrupted at exactly 10:30. And after this, my take at 10. Why is society so hard on men these days? It's almost like it's a crime being a bloke. Find out more shortly when I'll be bigging up the lads. Let's give it up for toxic masculinity. Lots to get through, a busy hour to come. But first, the headlines with Tatiana Sanchez.
Thank you, Mark. This is the latest from the GB newsroom. A series of planned rail strikes has been suspended, but the government is warning there would still be significant disruption over the next few days. RMT members were due to strike for 3 days from tomorrow, but the union says it secured the promise of a pay offer and is now entering a phase of intensive talks. Rail operators have welcomed the action being called off, but say the change of plan has come too late to reinstate services tomorrow. Downing Street says the number of asylum seekers at the Manston Migrant Centre has dropped to 2,600. At one point, as many as 4,000 people were being held at the facility in Kent, when it's supposed to have a maximum of 1,600. Number 10 says the Home Office is looking at what more can be done about capacity at the processing centre. A new energy scheme that pays households to cut their electricity use during peak times has been revealed. The new demand flexibility service, approved by energy regulator Ofgem, will launch next month and run until March next year. The National Grid says a typical household could save up to £100, but will need a smart meter to take part. The scheme is also being put in place to avoid blackouts this winter. Pakistan's former Prime Minister says he'll resume his anti-government protest despite yesterday's assassination attempt. Imran Khan, who was shot in the leg, says 2 gunmen were behind the attack, which killed 1 person and injured 11 others. It happened as he was leading a march on the capital, Islamabad, to demand early elections and the resignation of the Prime Minister. In the UK, the Prime Minister has said inflation is the #1 enemy as he vows to restore public trust in the government. Speaking to The Times, Rishi Sunak says he's doing everything he can to get a grip on inflation and limit rises in mortgage repayments. His comments come after a warning from the Bank of England that the country is facing its longest recession in a century. Meanwhile, Rishi Sunak has told a COP27 reception there'll be more human suffering if climate change continues to ravage the planet. King Charles hosted the event at Buckingham Palace, inviting more than 200 people, including business figures and environmentalists. The reception comes ahead of next week's summit in Egypt, which the King will miss, but Mr Sunak will now attend after a U-turn. TV, online and DAB+ radio. This is GB News. Now it's back to Mark Dolan tonight.
Thanks, Tatiana. We'll see you in an hour. Welcome to Mark Dolan Tonight. Big stories, big guests, and always big opinions. In the news agenda with my panel, are parents responsible for the behaviour of their adult children? And after Elon Musk fires Twitter employees at 3 in the morning, what's the best way to sack people? Is there an etiquette? Plus, tomorrow's papers live and uninterrupted at exactly 10:30 sharp with full panel reaction. Also, my Mark Meets guest is the hilarious and always opinionated Channel 4 star Kim Woodburn from How Clean Is Your House? She'll talk fame, reality TV, and how to be a good scrubber. I know I spend a lot of my life on my knees. Lots to get through, of course, and I want to get your emails throughout, mark@gbnews.uk. But first, my take at 10. I went viral this week with a tweet that annoyed all of the right people, which has become my hobby. Here it is. The woke left want drag acts in schools. They want open borders, lockdowns, masks, vaccine coercion. They want cancel culture, judgment by skin colour, banning of books, erasing of scientific facts, rewriting of history and censorship. But they're the nice people. Do keep up. It has become my mission to call out the madness and dangers of so-called woke culture or extreme political correctness, an idea from the hard left, which millions of sensible Labour supporters themselves hate. Let me give you some examples of woke culture. There's the Canadian professor Alan Walker, who teaches sociology and criminal justice at Old Dominion University in Virginia, who wants to destigmatise paedophilia. You heard me right. Walker has penned a book called Minor Attracted People and Their Pursuit of Dignity. Rebranding paedophiles as minor attracted people. Welcome to hell. What about the sympathetic interview on Norwegian TV this week with an able-bodied man who identifies as, wait for it, a disabled woman and goes everywhere in a wheelchair? Get out of that chair, you prize numpty. What an insult to wheelchair-bound people. There's the former Labour Shadow Home Secretary, Diane Abbott, this week seemingly blaming Suella Braverman for the rape of a teenage boy at a hotel housing refugees. Here's what she tweeted. Teenage boy raped at hotel housing refugees. Terrible case, but it is what happens when you demonise migrants and take no responsibility for safeguarding migrant children. Hashtag Suella Braverman out. That's wokeism, folks, offering a child rapist an excuse for his crimes. What about this corker from the UN Women's Organisation, who tweeted the following? Of all journalists killed in 2021, 11% were women. In 2020, this was 6%. On the International Day to End Impunity for Crimes Against Journalists, let us say out loud, hashtag protect journalists. Stop targeting women journalists. Now, of course, attacks on female journalists are truly appalling, and there are clear issues for women in the field. But this tweet seems to neglect the fact that 89% of those killed were men. No tweet for them. In the world of woke, men are a group unworthy of empathy or help. Suicide is the biggest killer of men under 40 in this country, and it's little surprise why. Our society has become male-phobic. It's now an unspoken crime to be a guy. The flavour of tweets like that one from the UN demonstrate how undervalued men are in our modern society, demonised for their toxic masculinity whilst they dig for coal half a mile under the ground, and as they freeze to death laying new roads in blizzard conditions in the dead of night. It's predominantly men that go to war and die. There are astonishingly brilliant females in all industries, absolutely, but it's mainly men who build and maintain the physical infrastructure of this country. Bridges, sewers, power stations, construction, you name it. Men are called upon to do the hardest, most dangerous tasks on earth. And what do they get for it? A telling off for the gender pay gap. Women are incredible, probably my preferred gender. But society is getting it badly wrong with men, attacking them, undermining them, and ignoring what they've done for all of us, and continue to do for all of us, including the dirty jobs. I'm confused by that UN Women tweet. Do they want more male journalists killed instead? Is that a better statistic? Are men expendable? This is classic woke stuff. Divisive identity politics in which you've got to be squeezed into a put-upon group of approved victims. A male journalist is not a victim by the looks of it, just collateral damage. This is indicative of the wider attitude of the progressive left towards men. Men are not on their list of protected groups. How about we stop all journalists being killed in the line of duty and campaign for that? Wouldn't that be an idea? It's time to love men again, to support them, to appreciate them, and to thank them for everything they do. It's a man's world, is it? Pull the other one. Is society too hard on men? Let me know your thoughts. Mark at gbnews.uk. Reacting to that and all of the big stories of the day are my brilliant panel of journalist and broadcaster Stephanie Tecci, the writer and political commentator Benjamin Loughnane, and legendary journalist and author Nina Mishkov. Nina, we've got to give up the men bashing.
I don't think it is men bashing to tweet that 11% of female journalists have been killed in war, because the proportion of women who are reporting on war is much smaller than the proportion of male journalists. So it's a far bigger number. And the thing is, I'm sorry, but it is still a man's world. And the reason that men do the physical, dirty jobs is because men are physically stronger than women. Nobody's disputing that. It just seems to me that men are rather scared of the fact that women are taking over so much. It's still not an equal playing field, and there's still a big glass ceiling. I'm mixing my metaphors there, but things are changing, and I think men are running scared of that. You know, stand up and fight for yourselves. But you know, hell, women are coming.
But it's men who have built the world, Nina, and they get no thanks for it.
They get absolutely every thanks, and it's men who start the wars, and they still get thanks for it, and they should get no thanks for it.
And what about this ridiculous idea, Nina, of toxic masculinity? There was a doomed ad campaign from Gillette in which basically when men were being told off about being men in a commercial for male razors.
Well, that's just a nonsense, basically. Let's not.
It reflects the culture, though, Nina.
Well, yes, but that's...
We're hating on men non-stop.
It's not hating on men non-stop. You know, we should be an equal society where both men and women get equal appreciation for what they do. Men and women are equal but different, but because of two things. One, men are, as I said before, are physically much stronger than women, and therefore what they say goes to a certain extent. And we're talking in very rough, in broad terms. And the other thing is that women have to take time off to have babies. Women are the ones who still take the full shoulder of childcare, however much there are, however much many more men there are who are taking their full share of parenting, it is still the job of the woman. And so, therefore, their careers are interrupted, and there is no way round that. There is no way round that. That's a physical fact of life, and you actually can't. You can't. It's not a problem to be solved because it's not really a problem. But what do you do about it?
OK, well, Benjamin, don't worry, I'm going to give you plenty of airtime because last time I checked, you are definitely a bloke. Unless you're transitioning, I doubt it, although you've got lovely cheekbones. Stephanie.
Yes.
What's going on with all this men bashing?
I think I do feel sorry for men, Mark, because I feel like they're losing their identity in society, at home, in the workplace. It's like men can't be men anymore, and I do feel sorry for them. I'm all for female empowerment, but I think we need to be living in a balanced world where men can be men and be celebrated. I think half of the problems we see of broken homes, young children not knowing what sex they belong with is because now the sexes have all been confused. I do believe that men and young boys should be trained how to be upright men in society. I think that's lost its way as well, but that's just down to broken homes as well. Yeah. So I just think it's one of those things where let a man be a man, but also let a woman be a woman and be respected for that.
Amen to that. Oh, my goodness. I want to rise to my feet and break into song. I couldn't agree with you more, Stephanie. Well, you are a boy, Benjamin, a fully grown man. What's your reaction to this tweet from the UN Women, essentially discarding the fact that 89% of journalists get killed every year?
Well, I've forgotten who it was, but I think it was Dave Chappelle said that only women, children and pets are loved unconditionally. Men have to earn it. They have to provide something to do so. I think, and as, you know, women have gone more into the workplace and there's more of an equal providing in the household, men have lost that sense of identity of providing, being the provider of the family, the breadwinner. And so there is a slight sort of crisis of identity that goes on there. But that's something I think which will be meted out over time as, you know, those sort of dynamics change and culture changes around it. But ultimately, I do think there is a sort of a natural dynamic there which leaves a lot of men feeling sort of useless and like furniture, like they don't really know what to do with themselves. And we've seen, you know, there's a huge crisis of, you know, suicide among men, you know, in recent times. I think that's a lot to do with it.
But Benjamin, not just sort of underappreciated and the suicide issue is very concerned, but men are being demonised. Yeah. That disgraceful expression, toxic masculinity. There's no equivalent for women.
Well, I think that it's the last group you can demonise and attack. You know, pretty much any other characteristic is protected. But if you're a man, especially if you're a straight white man, it's sort of, you're a sitting duck, you're an easy target. And I don't think it's out of any particular malice, it's just that people think twice about criticising anyone else because of those sort of protected characteristics.
Well, should Britain get dragged, God forbid, into World War III, toxic masculinity will come in very useful. But a great debate. My amazing panel are back at 10:30 for live and uninterrupted coverage of the papers. Don't forget, this show just got bigger. Every Saturday night, it's Mark Dolan's Saturday Night In. Who needs the pub? Bring a bottle and I'll see you from 8 till 11. And the first hour is the People's Hour. I'll be taking your video calls. If you want to be a star on the show, drop me an email, mark@gbnews.uk, and we'll put you on the telly. It's time now for this. Yes, it's time for Mark Meets, in which I speak to the biggest names in the world of politics, showbiz, sport, business and beyond. Tonight, the TV personality and writer Kim Woodburn, famous, of course, for co-starring in the hit Channel 4 series How Clean Is Your House, which was a smash hit for Channel 4, running to 6 series alongside her partner in crime, Aggie Mackenzie. There followed a long career in reality TV, including The Jungle and Celebrity Big Brother. Since then, she's been a fixture on our tellies and has even done a stint in Panto, including in Cinderella as an ugly sister. Terrible miscasting. I'm delighted to say that Kim Woodburn joins me now. Hi, Kim.
Hello, my love. How are you?
I'm very well. Great to have you on the programme. How clean is your house?
Do you know, I'm going to tell you something, my love. My house is spotless. I like to be clean. I clean, and I'm proud to say it. You won't find anything mucky in my house. Apart from my husband, he's rather sexual, but apart from that, we're not discussing that. I'll tell you something. I love a bit of masculinity, dear. I like a masculine man to bring it on. And women that want to be like men, idiots. I like to be caressed and smooched and I enjoy it. Give me a man. Send me a man to share my lot, dear.
Well, that's good to know. You don't mind a bit of toxic masculinity. The guy can hold the door open for you and pay for dinner.
Mark, the women are stupid, my love. Do you know we've got these poor men round the bend? What's wrong with a man opening the door? And they do it for me. I always say, thank you very much indeed. I can see the dilemma because they say, some women say, I can open it on my own, silly bitches. But the point is for a man to be a man and make you feel like a woman. Oh, you women that have just spoken, grow up.
Absolutely. Now, you starred in How Clean Is Your House, which was a cultural phenomenon. Were you always a scrubber?
Well, now, please. I cleaned for a lot of my working life, I must say. It was out of a need. You see, what happened was, I was 16 and I had nowhere to go. Broken family. And so, my love, what happened was, I decided I had to choose a job, awful, which gave me accommodation. So the only job, I thought, right, a lady living in a hotel cleaning or cleaning in a house. I had to get accommodation as well. I was broke as hell. So I went cleaning. Never regretted it. I love cleaning I love it. Give me any rotten bog, dear. And I'm down there, dear. Oh, I love it. Where there's muck, there's brass. And I'll tell you something, Mark, I made a bit of brass, dear. I live in a big house. Thank you.
Well, well deserved, because you've become a national treasure. The show made you famous, and as you've mentioned there, it boosted your bank balance. Were there any downsides to that fame, Kim?
Well, do you know, I've never found so, Mark. I'm going to be honest with you. Don't forget, I got found when I was 61. And I was living week to week, everybody else does, month to month, you know. And so to suddenly ring me and say, will you do a cleaning show? I cost on $2,000 a week. I didn't turn that in 6 months. And then it went to 4, then it went to 6,000 a week. I was raking in the money, my love. But I'll tell you something, and I hope you don't think I'm conceited, I'm not. But I honestly believe up to now, that is the finest cleaning show that's ever been on. I don't think it's been beaten up to now. I'm very proud of it.
It's a TV classic. You and Aggie were brilliant together, like John Lennon and Paul McCartney, if you like Morecambe and Wise. Did you get on in real life?
Well, do you know what? I'd very rarely discuss that, because I'm going to tell you why. I think it's I never say anything, but I think it's apparent, and I won't insult your intelligence. Of course, we fell out. And since we've fallen out, Aggie's written a few columns about me, which I would never do about Aggie, but I'll tell you why I wouldn't. For 6 years, she was marvellous in that show with me. Thank you very much, Aggie. We made a few bob. And it's great to have a few bob in your pocket. And I thank her as well. She had to be good as well to make it work. And so I say, I'm sorry we fell out. I'm not prepared to discuss it like Aggie does, because I wish all the luck in the world. 6 years of good money and just have a pot to pee in when they found me. I'm not complaining, my love. Bring it on, my lovely.
Happy days. I'm a Celebrity is about to start again. You appeared in The Jungle. The public loved you. You were the runner-up. Tell me about your experience in The Jungle.
Well, do you know something? I tell you, Mark, it's not phony. I can honestly tell you that. It's not phony at all. What you see is what you get. The only thing I found, and I found in every series I watch, and the one I was in, is the way they all constantly moan about being hungry. You didn't hear me moan about it once, and I'm a big woman. I eat, Macy. I'm 5'10", and I eat like a horse. But you know, my love, you never heard me moan because they give you enough to live on. They are never, you're peckish, but you're not starving. But everyone in that jungle, you'll hear it start, oh, I'm hungry, I can't go on. Oh, don't talk tripe. You don't talk tripe. You are peckish, but to say you're starving, you get too much into this. Oh, some of the food you eat shocking, dear. Well, I ate a testicle. Well, you don't do it on your wedding night, dear, do you? Spit it out, don't you, dear? You don't even eat a testicle on the wedding night. You spit the damn thing out. Now, you know what I'm talking. Don't sit there all innocent. But no, seriously, what you see is what you get. It's a great show. It's super. And it does show a person's strength. It really does. But, you know, they talk about Gillian McKeith, bless her. You need cowards in there. Oh, she was a hoot. Oh, would you have missed that, pretending to faint, dear, and pulling her clothes down? Would you have missed Paul Burrell? No, bless them. The biggest cowards that went in there. But we need them, love. It's entertainment.
It is entertainment. And look, it's entertaining every time you're on the box. Would you like to do more reality TV?
Do you know something? I believe this or not, Mark, and I don't give bull. I'm not a buller. I don't want to do too much. I'm 80 and I'm fit, touch wood. I've got a super husband and I've got a few bob in the bank, my love. What? And I want to do little bits. I don't want to sort of go into a grave just yet. I'd like to do a talk show. They won't have me on it. I'm too outspoken to be fired the first night, dear. I would. Or seducing the men in my dressing room. I'm quite a sexy woman, dear. But don't tell the husband. And or I'd like to do a show like, I don't know, I'd like to do the odd show, but I don't think I wrote all this. I never write, forget work, but I did. When they put on All Creatures Great and Small, this last series, which I think you agree is a superb series.
Yeah.
And what happened was they had Diana Rigg as Mrs. What's her name?
She has the name. I know, the matriarch.
I know how exaggerated she was. And sad to say, after the first series, Diana Rigg passed away. And I wrote and said, I've never done it before, I said, I'm sorry she's passed away, but if you're recasting, would you consider recasting me as the mad woman who's eccentric? Because I'm mad anyway. I never got a reply. Well, they missed me, though. Me and Tricky Will, we've been a great act. I wouldn't mind doing bits of eccentric work. I wouldn't mind doing a talk show, not the star, sitting on a board somewhere. But unfortunately, I tell the truth, you see. I don't say anything I don't know to be the truth. If I haven't investigated something and know it's the truth, I won't mention it. But the moment I know something's true, it's get on with it. If you don't like it, if you don't like the truth, you better lump yourself. Because if I can't tell the truth without being called a loudmouth, the world should come to an end, dear.
Definitely. I think you should do a show on GB News. We'd love to have you. Last but not least, Kim, Matt Hancock is going into the jungle. Can you give me some tough love in relation? Oh, well, I'm glad to hear it. Matt Hancock going into the jungle, your reaction?
Well, I'm going to tell you this. If he wants to go in the jungle, of course, why shouldn't he? But I don't think the position he holds right now, I know he's been suspended, but he has a constituency. You see, you can't let people down. That's exactly what he's done. You see, his constituency in West Suffolk is right now going under two very serious situations the people in West Suffolk are very worried about. One is the fact that they're thinking of cancelling a bus service, and a lot of people desperately rely on it, would be crippled without it. And secondly, many farmers in West Suffolk are under threat of losing their farms. They're going to purchase them, compulsory purchase. They're thinking about 2,500 acres of land to build a solar farm on, and they're so worried. Now, they appeal to him two very serious things, their livelihood, their families, and he is supposed to be sorting it out. Now, how can he meet his constituents when he's now gone to the jungle for 3 weeks?
He's had a nightmare. He's had a nightmare, I tell you. He's definitely asleep at the wheel. Can I say, Kim Woodburn, a fabulous joy, a privilege to have you on the programme. Come and see us again soon. What an entertaining person.
I must have a slurp of gin, dear.
There you go.
Excuse me.
There you go, Friday nights. You've earned it. The fabulous Kim Woodburn from a sparkling clean glass
Before we go,
brilliant stuff.
I find you very attractive, dear. I find you extremely attractive.
I'm honoured. I've always been attracted to the older woman, Kim. Send me your
Never mind
number.
the
Let's
older.
talk.
I've got a springing nice step down like a 20-year-old given the right man. You're the right man, dear. But don't tell the spouse.
My goodness, I'm overcome with emotion. The amazing Kim Woodburn. I tell you something, the emotions are replicated. Remarkable stuff. Next up, we've got tomorrow's front pages, and also in the news agenda with my panel, are parents responsible for the behaviour of their adult children? And after Elon Musk fires Twitter employees at 3 in the morning, what's the right way to sack someone? See you next for the papers.
Hello there, it's Eamon Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and TuneIn apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
Hello, I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m, where I'll be joined by two of the country's top comedians as we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight. If it's a big story, we'll be covering it, I guarantee, but we'll also have some fun along the way. That's GB News Headliners at 11 p.m. We won't put you to sleep, unlike some of the other paper review shows out there. So join us, 11 p.m, 7 nights a week.
I'm Mark White. As GB News Home and Security Editor, I cover those key issues that are so important to you. Our authorities, our communities doing all they can to combat violent crime. With the public services under unbearable strain, why are we still failing to control our borders? Defence, the first priority of any government, has been continually hollowed out. Can we trust our politicians to protect the armed forces? Join me, Mark White, on GB News.
Join me, Nana Akua, on Friday, Saturday and Sunday afternoons on GB News. Expect fiery debate and passionate discussion as me and my panel tackle some of the biggest topics hitting the headlines. It's a place for everyone's opinion. No one gets cancelled, but no one gets an easy ride.
Oh, she's on it today.
Be ready for conversations that are fierce, frank, and of course, fun. Every Friday, Saturday and Sunday afternoon from 4 p.m. on GB News.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
And the national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
Every Saturday at 2 o'clock, join me, Darren Grimes, for Real Britain. I'm not afraid to give you a platform and say it how it is.
Come on, make the case. Something like this is very, very important to people.
And we're always up for a laugh on this show.
God, honestly, you'd think there were no problems in the world.
Real Britain, every Saturday on GB News.
On the Mark Steyn Show, we cover the stories a lot of people are scared even to mention. The stuff that really matters with some of the world's biggest thinkers.
Now is his opportunity to kind of take the steering wheel of history.
Break away from the flock at 8 o'clock on GB News with the Mark Steyn Show.
We are GB News.
And we'd like to say thank you
To each and every one of you.
For helping our great nation
Find its voice.
We're absolutely everywhere.
across England, Scotland,
Wales and Northern Ireland.
On TV,
On radio,
And online.
We're proud to be
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
The papers in just 1 minute. Lots of emails coming in about the amount of male bashing we've got these days. It's now a crime to be a bloke, it seems. Well, strong reaction on email. This from Martin, who says, Mark, after spending a year and an obscene amount of money in family court just to be allowed to spend time with my own daughter. I've seen firsthand what men are worth. We are no longer an equal part of the family, let alone society. Women have only got what men have decided to give them. That includes a vote. When something major happens, women are pushed aside, says Aaron. Nikki says, hi, Mark, you're right. Stop the identity politics. As a woman, I agree that men have an identity crisis, not knowing how to behave. Equality and respecting our differences is the way forward. I loved your woke tweet. Mark says this woke identity politics has nothing to do with the far left. Stop lumping the left together in one homogenous group. These people would not be welcome in Marxist-Leninist parties. They are divisive and would better be described as extreme liberals or just plain nuts. We can agree on that. Well done, Mark, for a brilliant take at 10, says Keith. It's long overdue that we called out the nonsense and imbecility of the woke brigade, and you are brave to do so. I think white male heterosexuals are the most hated demographic in the world at the moment. Her best wishes, that's from Keith in Northumberland. Mark, this debate over men and women. Think of it from the children's perspective. They prefer to have a parent at home. They prefer that parent to be mum. Traditional families are becoming fewer. My experience, though, are those families are the happiest, not only for the children, but the parents too. And last but not least on this, Reese says, Mark, I wholly agree with you. It's a tragedy that the men who built the very foundation upon which our society stands are publicly vilified. Teach men how to be real men. The male identity needs to be reclaimed. Thank you for that, Reese. Those are your emails. I'll get to more of your thoughts shortly. Mark at gbnews.uk. Now, don't forget that on Saturdays, this show is expanding. That's right. We're going from 8 till 11 for Mark Dolan's Saturday Night In. And it starts tomorrow night, and I want you to be part of it. The first hour from 8 is the People's Hour, and I'll be taking your video calls. So if you want to be a star on the programme tomorrow night, drop me a line, mark at gbnews.uk, and be part of the People's Hour from 10. Bring a bottle. Who needs the pub? It's Mark Dolan's Saturday Night In tomorrow night. Well, it's just gone 10:30. Time now for tomorrow's papers. And let's start with the Telegraph. Pensions targeted in stealth tax raid. Rishi Sunak and Jeremy Hunt plan to reveal a stealth tax raid on pensions later this month as they push to balance the books and reassure the markets. The Telegraph has learnt that the pension lifetime allowance is set to be frozen for 2 more years, with a rise in line with prices delayed from 2025 to 2027. It means 2 million savers now face tax charges of up to 55% on their retirement funds by the end of that period, according to expert analysis. The approach comes with the future of the pensions triple lock, which guarantees state pensions will rise by the highest of 2.5%, earnings or inflation hanging in the balance. Rail strikes called off, but archaic practices will linger on. Again, a big story there on the front page of the Telegraph. Good news, but still there will be disruption. The Crown's fabrications are deeply hurtful, says Sir Tony Blair, and also says Sir John Major. The Times now. State can't fix all your problems, says Sunak. Blimey, it's almost like he was listening to my monologue tonight. Rishi Sunak has warned that people cannot expect the state to fix everyone's problems, as he vowed to regain the trust of voters by being honest about the scale of the economic difficulties ahead. In his first big interview since he became Prime Minister, Sunak admitted that trust in the Tory party had been damaged by his predecessor Liz Truss's sugar rush budget. He told The Times that his job was to restore economic credibility and win back trust, but said he was confident that the public would judge his autumn budget on November the 17th to be fair and compassionate. OK, let's have a look now at the Daily Mail. World exclusive. Lucan left 3 Cluedo cards in car he dumped. Cryptic new clues in the Lord Lucan mystery can be unveiled by the Daily Mail. Cluedo cards found by police at the time showing Colonel Mustard, the lead piping and the haul. Almost 50 years after his family's nanny was found bludgeoned to death with a lead pipe, it can be revealed that these 3 cards from the aristocrat's boardroom were discovered in his abandoned car. The plot thickens. The Sun now. Exclusive. Patsy Kensit joins EastEnders. TV star Patsy Kensit has landed a role in EastEnders as the mum of tragic Lola Pierce. Ex-model Patsy, who's 54, will start filming later this month in scenes due to air at Christmas. The Daily Express now ditch triple lock and we won't vote Tory again. Rishi Sunak faces a voters' rebellion if he drops the Tory promise to protect the triple lock on pensions. The Guardian, we will be doomed without climate pact, says UN chief. And the Daily Mirror, shameless Hancock latest. He skipped Tory conference to film SAS show. Absent MP Matt Hancock missed last month's Tory conference to film celebrity SAS Who Dares Wins. The I newspaper now, cyber attack hits patient care as NHS records are left in chaos. And I'm more afraid of movies than cancer. Jeff Bridges, star of The Old Man, on beating a tumour and near-fatal COVID in an interview with today's independent newspaper. Also, Brexit trade blow over Tory ties to Bolsonaro. There's little prospect of a post-Brexit trade deal with Brazil in the near future because of strained relations between the UK government and the administration of Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva. And last but not least, the Daily Star. Twitter exec, will I get sacked before salad wilts? Elon Musk fights the Daily Star lettuce. It's beyond belief. A new international lettuce war has broken out following the Star's Liz Truss challenge. A US Twitter worker is trying to outlast the veg before new boss Elon Musk fires him. And those are your front pages. Let's get reaction now from my brilliant, wonderful panel. We have, in no particular order, the brilliant presenter and broadcaster Stephanie Chetchy. Great to have you with us, Stephanie. We also have political commentator Benjamin Loughnane and Fleet Street legend, the one and only Nina Mishkov. Stephanie, let me have a word with you about the targets on pensions in regard to the triple lock protection of the pension, either the floor, which is 2.5% increase, or it goes in line with inflation or wages, whichever is the higher. Is the dream of a well-paid retirement over?
It is, Mark. I think it's so diabolical what pensioners are now facing. They've spent all of their working careers saving up towards a pension where they could just switch off and enjoy life, and now this government has robbed them of it. It was only 2 weeks ago we had Liz Truss promising pensioners that there will be this triple lock, and now that's now questionable whether that's going to be kept and upheld. As a pensioner now, they're facing cost of living crisis, soaring energy bills. Where is the pension? What's the value in having a pension anymore? And even at my age now, I'm thinking, is it even worth saving for a pension that in the future might just all go through into tax?
Yeah, that's right. Would it be better just to save or to invest in stocks and shares or try to buy a property?
We should be looking after our elders. I'm very much old school in that sense. And I just think, you know, I read an article today of a woman who had no heating, nothing, and her house looked like it was falling to pieces because she has no pension money left.
There are plenty of rich pensioners, plenty of very poor ones as well.
Yeah, it's extreme. There's no in-between.
Yeah, for sure. Benjamin, you're a young person. Are you worried about the plight of pensioners?
Well, I think, you know, young people have had to sacrifice a lot over the past couple of years, bearing the brunt a lot economically in terms of staying at home during lockdown. The early years of your career are so important, and I think a lot of people were held back by that. Then with the national insurance stuff, a number of things. And
Plus the next generation will pick up the bill for COVID.
Exactly. Yeah. We're going to be paying this off the rest of our lives, and then you factor in things like student loans, so much more expensive now than they were even 10, 15 years ago. You know, I don't think it's a good thing to hit pensioners, but I think, you know, you have to spread it across every generation to some degree, because I think young people have actually borne the brunt of a lot of it for the past few years.
Well, yes, this pensions triple lock, it either comes with, you know, the floor, it can't be less than an increase of 2.5%, or it goes in line with average earnings, which is about 5% at the moment, or inflation, whichever is the highest figure. So that'd be a 10% pay rise. Is that justified in the current climate?
But I think, you know, if you've been paying into it your entire life, you can sort of demand something back, especially if you've been promised this triple lock for years. You might say, you know, well, why promise it to us? You've you know, made decisions financially around this being guaranteed to us. You can't then pull the rug from under us and make us pick up the pieces. But then on the other hand, you shouldn't be doing that to young people either.
Is this a political risk for the Tory party? Because we know it's older voters that often flock to the Tories in the ballot box. But do they have anywhere else to go if the Tories do scrap the triple lock? Is it a risk, a gamble worth taking for Rishi Sunak, who's got this a black hole of anywhere between 30 and 50 billion pounds to fill.
Well, it may be a short-term risk, but I think in the long term, if you continue to hit the young, they will never vote Tory. No matter how, they say you get more Conservatives as you get older. I think people will bear a grudge if they are, hampered in the early years of their careers, when they're trying to start a family, buy a house, they can't get on the property ladder, they can't settle down. They feel like they're being unfairly targeted simply because the Tories want to keep that vote, that voter bloc in play. I think, long term, the damage will be much worse.
Nina, many of my viewers will be raging at this threat to the pensions triple lock, which was in the Tory manifesto.
Absolutely. And the thing is, and I understand what you're saying about young people, but the thing is, you're young. You don't understand what hardship is, what hard things... Because you are young and you haven't experienced enough to know that what you've gone through in the pandemic is nothing, I have to say, compared to...
I think it was pretty bad.
Not nothing, but compared to things that life experiences that you go through. You haven't had to fight a war. Other generations not yet. Or maybe that will come. And God hope not.
Can I just say, Benjamin, you'd look great in uniform.
Thank you.
This bromance I'm quite liking.
By the way, I'll be the general. I'll be giving the orders.
Oh, yeah, from about 500 miles away behind the desk.
But what I was going to say, the thing is, with pensioners, they don't have the means or the access to earning more money, whereas you could go out and get, or somebody of your age could get a different job. Now, the thing is, when you say in line with inflation, unless you do it in line with inflation, they are taking a cut in a minimal thing. And if you'd seen what a rise in it would be, that's probably a latte a week from Pret.
But then why doesn't the same thing exist for salaries, for example, for young people? Why don't salaries rise in line with inflation? Because people take a real term pay cut year on year. Anyway, everyone's already
I understand that, but you, as I say, you have access to making other money.
Yeah.
There's no way. People are trapped. And the thing is, we're talking about political things. We're talking about, well, will the Tories be, cutting their own throats politically if they do this, because older people won't vote. Let's forget the politics. People are going to die. Old people are going to die. I'm not being hysterical or dramatic about it, but if they cut this and in the winter, then there's no heating, very little food. People are going to die because of it.
But then on the other end of that prospect is young people who are facing a future which looks bleak, where they don't know if they can get homes, they're losing jobs. It's like...
They're paying off student debt.
Paying off student debt. It doesn't look happy for us either, or optimistic. And we have a longer life ahead of us. Not saying that I do not care about older people, because I do, but I just think for younger people right now, we've got this stress all mounting on us, which doesn't feel like it's our problem. The mental health of many young people I talk to these days is quite frightening.
Well, the thing is, to be perfectly honest, I don't think you've been tested enough. Earlier, it's been the last 20, 30 years have actually been okay for.
Do you think young people are a bit spoiled, a bit pampered?
No, I don't think necessarily pampered.
Snowflake generation.
No, well, you can.
Because you were no snowflake.
You can bandy these words about, but I do think that parents, it's become far more a child-centric society. Whereas when I was young, which is when dinosaurs roamed the earth. You didn't have a say in things. When suddenly there was the arrival of the teenager in the 60s, and you suddenly thought, But my life for many years was dominated by middle-aged men who, politicians, everybody above me was a middle-aged man.
But then one element of that is the fact that people regard as being adults at a younger age previously. Nowadays, people live in a sort of a permanent infancy.
Absolutely.
And that's a problem, but one of the reasons for that is economic, because if you can't buy a house until you're in your 30s, and you're just going to spend those years as extended teenage years, because people just can't settle down early on anymore. And I think, I do think that's because we put so much pressure on young people.
OK. There you go. Back to me, Faye. There you go. Everyone in front of me was a middle-aged man. There's a headline waiting to be written. Could be misconstrued, and hopefully it will be. Look, next up, we've got lots more from the papers, including this quite interesting story. Are parents responsible for the behaviour of their adult children? Plus, after Elon Musk fires Twitter employees at 3 a.m, what's the best way to sack people? And in the Times, Rishi Sunak says the state can't fix all of your problems, which ties in nicely with my big opinion monologue, which you can find on Twitter at GBNews. Lots to get through. See you in 3.
We are GB News, and we'd like to say thank you to each and every one of you for bringing us your conversations, for helping our great nation find its voice. We are here for you on radio, television, and online, across England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland.
It's not the BBC, you actually get your facts right.
We are proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
My name's Tom Harwood, and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today. I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked. Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
On Mark Dolan Tonight, we have a simple plan, which is to inform, stimulate and entertain in equal measure. It's all about getting your opinions on the national television airwaves. I love my viewer emails, mark@gbnews.uk. So do join me every Friday, Saturday and Sunday for big guests, big opinions and a big presenter. 6'5", don't you know? See you then on GB News.
Join me, Arlene Foster, for The Briefing on GB News. Every Friday at 3 p.m, I'll give you all the latest political news and analysis, and we'll have robust live debate. To make sure that you're caught up on all of the biggest issues of the day, we'll bring on experts in their field. I'll ask the questions that you'd like to ask. We're not afraid to tackle discussions from all perspectives, including yours. Don't forget, The Briefing with me, Arlene Foster, every Friday at 3 p.m. on GB News.
We are GB News, right across the nation. You can get us on television, on radio, on digital. We're absolutely everywhere.
Amazing! You see, amazing!
You remind me of me in the European Parliament. But here's the most important bit. We are not part of the mainstream establishment. We think and speak just like you do. We are the People's Channel.
Magnificent. That's really, really thoughtful.
Come and join us on GB News, the People's News Channel.
Well, look, lots more stories from the papers. I love this one. Loose Women panellist Denise Welch left fans in hysterics after her reaction on Twitter to this clip. Now, that's her son, who is a rock star. What's the band, Benjamin?
1975.
Matt Healy.
Matt Healy, thank you very much, right? I'm so out of touch. But there you go. He's clearly enjoying a cigarette, or possibly something stronger. And it just became a bit of a viral sensation, but it begs the question, are you responsible for the behaviour of your adult child? Because, you know, she got a bit of a kickback from his behaviour. You know, you've done a terrible job, you're an awful mother. So what do we think about that? Nina, are you responsible for what your adult kids do? Do you remember when you and Blair got completely drunk in central London?
No.
Yeah, and that's while Tony Blair was Prime Minister.
No, I've never met Tony Blair.
Right, lucky you. But you and Blair moved on by the police. That was quite embarrassing for the PM at the time. Yeah. But when the kids go AWOL, is it fair to blame the parents and say you did a bad job?
No, well, actually depends how bad a job they've done. But I mean, when a kid comes to sort of this 18, no, he's an adult and he's his own man or her own woman. And you can. The thing is, his success, here's the thing, his success, she's more than owned. She's very happy to say, I'm the mum of Matt Teagley, 1975. They're fabulous. So she, in that respect, she has to own it herself as well. If he's really being, you know, a bit naff like that on stage, then if she takes the success, she has to take the downside as well.
I mean, I don't think it was particularly outrageous what he did, but people can be, Stephanie, very judgmental of parents when kids behave badly, don't you think?
Totally. I sometimes do believe we are products of our parents, though, because, you know, they're the ones that have grown us up, moulded us in who we are.
It's their fault.
I think so, a little bit. And to be honest, I think your job, even though I'm not a parent, I think your job as a parent is never done. I think even her seeing this video, she's going to have to step in as a mum and be like, OK, that's a bit too much, Matt. So I think as a parent, your job is never done. But rightly so, as you said, Nina, he is a product of being his own man.
Benjamin, your parents must be very proud. They did a great job. Look at you.
I'm sure. Well, look, I think you get good parents with bad children, bad parents with good children, good parents with good children, bad parents with bad children. You know, it's there's no correlation, I don't think, or no.
Oh, I think there is definitely a correlation.
What
about you're the product of your upbringing?
There is
you are the product of your upbringing.
But then you get children, for example, two children from the same parents, and they both turn out completely differently. There are always cases where you get to a certain age, you make your own decisions, and you have to.
But there are parents who treat their children differently,
Yeah,
I obviously don't know a parent who doesn't.
Well, it's definitely.
Well, I tell you what, we've got a minute to go. Let's talk about sackings, because Elon Musk has bought Twitter, which is the social media platform, and he's fired several thousand staff. They found out because their laptops didn't work at 3 a.m. Not a very kind way of doing it. So is there an etiquette around firing people? Nina, you've been in the media for a little while. Have you ever been fired?
I have been fired once. By Piers Morgan.
Outrageous.
And, no, I'd had a column, a double-page spread in the Mirror every Friday for 4 years, and he wanted to make more space for Jonathan Ross, who was also a columnist. So he called me into the office, and it's the first time I'd been in the office at all. I was freelance, and he did it face-to-face and explained it, and he was an absolute perfect gentleman about it. And the next week, I got an even bigger space and twice the money.
Boom. Glad to hear it. At the Sun.
No, that was at the Mirror.
At the Mirror,
yeah.
Upgraded. Well, you're too young to have been sacked, but is there an etiquette, do you think, Benjamin?
Well, I think in the case of Elon Musk, you know, you have all these people who've spent the past few years banning people on Twitter in just exactly the same way. So maybe they got their comeuppance, who knows? But no, it's not nice. It's not. It's probably not the best way of going about it. But then you have the flip side of that. If you give them too much notice, they might, you know, start looting the offices, taking up, you know, losing equipment.
Well, look, Stephanie, Benjamin and the wonderful Nina, you're all rehired. Please come back and see us soon. It's been a brilliant show. Thanks for your company. Don't forget, we start at 8 o'clock tomorrow. Mark at gbnews.uk if you want to be part of the People's Hour from 8. See you then. Headliners is next.
Evening, I'm Alex Deakin, and this is your latest weather report from the Met Office. After a fine Friday, tomorrow looks pretty dull and damp for most parts of the UK, although across Northern Ireland and parts of Scotland it should be brightening up. The dull and damp weather, courtesy of these weather fronts, tied into a fairly vicious-looking area of low pressure. That low is staying well clear, but the weather fronts are making steady progress. They'll introduce more cloud and eventually some outbreaks of rain tonight across Northern Ireland. Elsewhere, though, most places having a fine evening, just the odd shower across the northwest. And with the clearer skies across the east, that's where we're seeing the lowest temperatures. It's quite chilly everywhere this evening. By dawn in the east, we'll be well down into single figures, some pockets of frost in rural spots. Notice further west, however, temperatures will actually start to rise later in the night as the rain arrives. Does mean a dull, wet start for Wales, Northern Ireland and western Scotland. Quite quickly, though, Northern Ireland will turn drier and then brighten up. And I don't think we'll see too much rain through the day across these eastern counties of England. It may well brighten up come the afternoon across north and west Wales, northwest England, certainly most of Scotland having some sunny spells. But elsewhere,